Hello, everybody. You've tuned into the Gavin Miller Show, where we'll be talking about Tyrod Taylor. Nah, just kidding. It's the AF crew back at it again. So this episode's going to be really fun. We're going to make some really bold predictions, but before we do that, I'm going to hand it over to my co-hosts, starting off with our resident Browns fan. Steve, if you could introduce yourself.
Pretend Browns fan. I'm not really a fan of
Hashtag hipster.
For them this year. Hipster. I think the hipster picks this year is all these newfound 49er fans off of the 5 games at the end of last season. They'll be coming out of the closet. It's like when the Seahawks won the Super Bowl a few years ago and everyone started taking the mick out of them, going like, all your 12th fans that have all been fans only since 2012.
Is that where the Seahawks got the 12 from? They literally had 12 fans.
No. Oh dear, you're going to kill me. I'm not very healthy today. So the laughing has to be, I have to rein it in a little bit because I'm a bit asthmatic. Anyway. So yeah, what were we talking about? I can't even remember. Something to do with the Browns, then we went off the Seahawks. Off the deep end, like normal. But anyway, other than that, yeah, I'm fine.
Andrew, what's been happening with you?
Not much. Oh, that's a good start. You threw me off guard. I wasn't quite expecting a question quite as soon. What's been up with me?
You weren't expecting intros.
No, I was expecting more than yeah. I was expecting more than Andrew. What's been happening with you? I was expecting also joining us or something like that. Anyway, what's been happening with me? I've just been making friends with paintbrushes recently and redecorating my new house in anticipation of moving into that. Was whitewater rafting last weekend. That was pretty cool. But yeah, nothing else much. So yeah.
Nice. Making friends with paintbrushes. I'm sure there's probably some sort of helpline for that. So yeah, as per usual, we've managed to ruin the podcast within 5 minutes, and I've not even mentioned Tyrod Taylor yet.
You did. You mentioned Tyrod straight away. It was
that
the Gav.
Didn't count. That didn't count. Okay. So this episode, we are going to chat about a few really bold predictions. We're going to make some way too early predictions on a lot of different things. But before we get into that, hopefully you've all been watching All or Nothing, which has been on Amazon Prime for the 3rd season. This year it covered the Dallas Cowboys, which was, again, I love the way they do these things. Just that, the insight and they do it just so well. Like the way they do all the behind the scenes stuff, all the interviews, all the stuff they catch the players saying. I literally do not think anyone does that as good as the NFL does. But yeah, guys, what's been your thoughts so far on All or Nothing?
I thought it was good, as always. I didn't quite get into it as much as I did the first 2 seasons. Did you not think it was maybe a little bit reserved, this one?
It definitely felt staged, I thought. It definitely felt like they knew the cameras were there. And then they didn't play up to it. They hid away from it. So yeah, I get your feeling. One of the just on that point, this is definitely jumping ahead, but one of the big disappointments for me was just there didn't seem to be that many characters like in that locker room. There wasn't that many people where you were like, oh my god, he's so cool, or oh my god, he's so crazy. Like obviously in the last season, who was it again? The guy from the Rams who didn't believe in dinosaurs. You just didn't have.
Oh, the big defensive lineman. Oh,
yeah.
What's his name?
Did he not go to the Dolphins? Or have I made that up? Or is that Robert Quinn? Have I made that up?
Quinn went to the Dolphins.
Well, William Hayes. William Hayes?
Hayes, that's it. Yeah, Willie Hayes. Yes.
So there was just. It just felt like
Legend.
there was no characters like that. It just didn't have that feel.
Yeah, I think with everything you hear about Des Bryant, and the supposed character that he is. I mean, there was that one scene in training with the cornerback whose name escapes me.
Number 27.
Yeah. So there was that bit where they had a bit of a coming together, but other than that, there was nothing in terms of his attitude, and I expected to see more of that, so it was maybe a little bit disappointing.
It was quite funny that he's obviously not with the team now, and a lot of the early episodes, because it was narrated with that John Hamm that does it, and I don't know whether he had maybe recorded it prior to him being cut, or whether it was just very convenient that him recording his bits was after he got cut. But he was, one of the first episodes was all about, like, you know, there's some signs that Bryant's past it and he's maybe not the player he was, and you know, I thought it was quite funny because obviously he wasn't with the team by the time it got aired, so that was quite interesting seeing back.
I actually thought Des Bryant was pretty sound through all of it. Like, I thought he just seemed like he didn't have like this sort of prima donna that were perceived that he is. He actually came across pretty well. His frustrations seemed to be genuine. Like, I would feel the same if I was in his position. And I think it was the game. Was it the game against the Redskins? Maybe, where he went to the bench and he said, like, in the fourth quarter, why have I only been targeted 2 times the whole game?
And was that not in the middle? They had that awful run in the middle of the season where there was no touchdowns for 3 games or something.
12 days, they lost 3 games. I mean, that's what cost them their season, I think. I mean, they only scored, what was it, like 6 points, 3 points, and possibly nil. Did they even get shut out? One of them? I mean, they just got destroyed for 3 games. And it wasn't even like they only got beat, like, 7-3 or anything. I mean, they got whipped, all 3 of them.
Yeah. So. And you're like, what? Like, for the Cowboys' point of view, it's not like they had loads of good wide receivers. So the one person that's good, to only target him twice. And it did feel like throughout it that there was definitely some sort of friction between him and Dak Prescott, I thought. They just, to me, just didn't seem like they were, on the same point. And I think there was one part in their training as well where Des was talking about the fade to the post, and he was talking to the wide receivers coach, and he was just talking about it and how, like, Dak just would not do what Des wanted him to do in terms of this throw.
Was he not saying him and Romo used to practice the fade all the time?
I remember. They really focused in on that when Romo came back and did his commentary with the first time sort of returning after he retired. So they focused a lot on how him and Des had practiced that play or that throw so often.
Which is just so strange. Again, the guy's like, in the record books for touchdowns and to just not do that, and then you think you're having a bad season and you're still not throwing it to him. It almost felt a bit like that was a choice, like they were choosing not to throw to him. I could be wrong, but that was just my sort of interpretation of it.
So you think behind the scenes they were setting it up to cut him over this off-season?
I think so. I think they were never going to re-up him anywhere near the money that he would have wanted, so I think they just thought that may as well move on because he has had issues with injuries and whatnot as well. So
yeah.
But what about Zeke? I thought he was a big baby. Like,
yeah. Oh, he was a sulky bugger all the way through it. And for me, what annoyed me, if I was a proper Cowboys fan, I would have been raging watching him through this season, because every time he's sitting in an office and he looks half asleep and he's playing with his hair all the time. He's not giving 2 hoots. He's faffing around his phone, he's playing in his hair, and he just didn't look like he was actually committed. And even the training camp runs, I mean, I know they don't play at 100%, but the only time I thought he was actually training at a decent capacity was when he got back off his 6-game suspension,
Yeah, and that was probably just down to wanting to play football.
Yeah, because he'd been kicked out for 6 weeks. So.
Yeah, and I mean that tied in. Remember, there was that game was it the second or third game of the season where they got annihilated, and there was the accusation against
Zeke. He only had 10 carries.
Yeah, and he just wasn't trying, because I think there was one play where there'd been an interception and he just basically shrugged his shoulders and stood still and watched them run it back.
Yeah, that's right. That is right.
So So maybe there's an attitude problem there with him that came through on it, which, yeah, he's still a hell of a player though, isn't he?
Yeah, even though it was staged, when he came back and Jerry Jones sat him down, I still wonder if, I hope Zeke got the message at that point. I hope he was sitting thinking, holy shit, the big man's telling me to get my shit together now. It's about time I sort my stuff out.
Yeah, but I suppose particularly after a big 6-game suspension, which was huge, and for them to then say, no, you're sort of our guy, really get your head down, get your head in the game, and hopefully he does for them. The one guy that really stood out for me through the whole thing was Sean Lee. I'm waiting for the medical opinion. But I think in all the seasons I've watched, in terms of a player that appears to just get the game, he seems miles ahead. He to me looks like a head coach of the future.
Yeah, I mean, the last 3 episodes, I think he was the one that was sitting at the computer talking to the defense and the special teams and running through plays and playing things back and saying, you've got to watch for this guy doing this, and you've got to watch for this, and this is what we're doing here, and this is what we're doing. You're absolutely right. He is, mentally, he has got it all. He is definitely what they call football intelligent.
Yeah.
The slight on him has been, and they even referenced it in the show itself, the slight on him has always been that he just can't stay healthy. He is injured all the time.
Yeah. And he's like, it's a huge blow to there's such a different defense when he plays and when he doesn't play. So yeah, I think you're really spot on there, and I think, Andrew, you're spot on as well. I do see him being a head coach, and it might be sooner rather than later based on how his career's going with injuries. One other thing I wanted to speak about was just how do we think Jerry Jones came across?
Not too bad, actually. I quite liked him. I think before watching the series, I'd always viewed him as he's a bit of an outspoken, borderline nightmare as an owner, because he wants to be in control and he wants to shape things and whatnot. And okay, yeah, I get that he is the man, he is in control, but he does it all with his family, and it always seemed to be group decisions, and he seemed to be really open and receptive to what people thought and felt, and he did seem to run it, because it's a family business and whatnot, he seemed to run it with care. I thought he came across really well, actually.
I totally agree. I think like the perception of him versus the reality were just two different things. I had this like in my head, this sort of Dan Snyder-esque character like throwing money about, but he's actually really he's really genuine. I think there was one bit where he's at one of the son's high school games or whatever, and they're eating the hot dogs, and he's saying, like, where do we get these hot dog buns? These are the best hot dog buns I've ever tried in my life. He said, we need to get these buns. It was just like he was so passionate about these hot dog buns. I'm just like...
Yeah, I
just think it's very cool.
I thought he come across really well as well, but that maybe added to the sense of it feeling quite staged, because I didn't quite expect that. But
that's true.
Maybe he is genuinely just like that.
I know you said he didn't really throw his money around too much, but I tell you what, how about that Star Complex?
Oh my god.
What is it, 1.5 billion? It actually cost him more to make the Star Complex than it did the stadium. If you think about that, that's mental.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. It was so cool. Like, it's hard to... Like, I know obviously in American football, like, the owners constantly try and outdo each other with their stadiums and their facilities, but oh my days... That is just something else.
It really is. It really is.
The other thing that I thought was quite just adding to the staged factor, just when I was thinking about it there, the special teams, how they all like hug each other after the special teams meeting. It was just weird. I was
put on an upbeat tune and hug it out.
Yeah, like I get like the camaraderie and all that sort of stuff, but it was literally like it just felt like these players were being forced to do this for the cameras. Like, even some of the players looked uncomfortable hugging players and stuff, and they're just like...
They did. They certainly did the first couple of times, but maybe towards the end they were used to it. Yeah.
And just before we sort of finish up on the All or Nothing season, the only other thing I have to add, that you guys can add anything you feel like, but Jason Garrett just seems like a wet blanket to me. Like, when he was angry and he was swearing, it was the same tone as it was when he was happy and excited. I was just like, he just did not fill me with anything, and
pretty bland, isn't he?
I'm just surprised that he's in charge of that organisation.
Is he our new Jeff Fisher?
I think so. I actually do. That's what I was thinking in my head. Like, for our listeners, like, halfway through it, the guys were like, "Oh, Gav, have you taken notes?" And I was like, "No." But that was one of the few notes I eventually took. Was like, Jason Garrett ? And he just didn't fill me with any sort of like excitement or passion. So no wonder these players have gone from, the season they did have to the season they had last year.
Jeff Fisher at least had a bit of passion about him during the last series, even if it was in totally the wrong places. At least he had that about him.
He also had fantastic facial hair.
That true.
Okay.
There's only two other wee things that I was going to mention. Was I'd forgotten how good Lawrence's start of the season was last year, and I was sacking for absolute fun. It was pretty good. That Tyreek Hill play at the end of episode 4,
that was unreal. I could watch that all day.
It was awesome. I mean, just the situation and everything. I mean, that and this is where likes of these, series like All or Nothing or Hard Knocks do brilliantly, is when they film it and edit it and then like cut at the end. It's just like, my God, this could be the end of the season off this one amazing play. And then also the Claiborne 6 sacks. I'd forgotten that happened against Dallas as well. I was just like, holy shit. All these things happened against them as well. It was pretty cool.
Andrew, have you got anything else to add to our All or Nothing segment?
Not on the Cowboys. Have either of you watched the Michigan series yet?
No.
Not yet.
No, okay. Well,
do you want to give us a spoiler on it?
I'm going to give it a sneaky peek. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have watched it. I was away with work at the start of the week, and I watched pretty much all of it over the course of 3 days. What it highlighted to me is there's a different mindset in the college game compared to the NFL. Obviously, in the NFL, it's all about winning. But there's one quote that Jim Harbaugh gives in one of his speeches at the start of the year, which is, we don't know if we've got a good football team here. We'll find out if this is a good team in 20 years when we find out what kind of man you become, what kind of father you've become, what kind of husband you've become. At that point, we'll know if it's a good team. So I think it was really interesting to see that different focus. It's not just about winning, it's about building these guys as people and making sure they get through their education as well. But yeah, there's some interesting characters in there. I was listening to the NFL Scotland podcast, and they had a brief mention of it as well. And one of the guys on there had said that Jim Harbaugh was a guy that you would like to put in charge of your kids at that point of their lives. He does come across in it really well. But yeah, interesting. And there seems to be their defensive line. I think most of them will be in the draft next year, in the 2019 draft, and I can see a few of them going quite high up. Rashawn Gary in particular, he was one of the top high school prospects when he went into college, and I'm sure he'll be one of the top draft picks as well when he moves into the NFL. But yeah, really worthwhile watch, so take the time to watch it, guys.
There you go, that's our All or Something roundup. Did I get that wrong? Oh, sorry, All or Nothing roundup.
Muttley's in the house.
He totally is, sorry.
Okay, so we're going to move on now to our way too early, way too bold predictions. And we're going to... Will we do like what we done with the draft? Will we keep a tab of these and see how many we get right and review?
Yeah, let's
Yep.
do it. See if we can remember in a year's time what we picked.
Someone's going to have to
6
do a
months,
listen back.
but
Yeah. It's when it gets to the NFL Super Bowl weekend next year, and it's like the award season comes out, and all these things are happening. We're 2 days before, I'll be like, "Oh, I'm going to have to go and listen back to that episode. What episode was it again?"
Yep.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine, Steve. We know that you voted for every team to win because you love them all the same.
Everyone's a winner. So that's the problem with schools these days. Here's your
Steve Harbaugh.
participation medal, Dallas Cowboys. Here's your participation medal, Washington Redskins. Well done. Rage.
Okay,
Anyway,
let's
detracting
go in,
again.
let's go into our way too early predictions, and we'll keep the Super Bowl winner to last. Are we're comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start off with, we've just finished the draft, and there's been a lot of big talent spoken about. So let's start with Rookie of the Year. Andrew, who do you think will be the Rookie of the Year for the upcoming season?
Yeah, my prediction for Rookie of the Year isn't that bold, but it will become bold as we move through these predictions. So I'm going with Rookie of the Year will be Saquon Barkley, but more on that to come.
Oh, teaser.
I know, but that's really interesting because I put down Rookie of the Year. It's more than likely going to be a quarterback, because if any of these 4 kids that got drafted in the first 10 picks get hot or half decent, it's always a quarterback that's going to win it. But I says I wasn't so sure, so I'm going to put Saquon Barkley that's my Rookie of the Year. So really interesting, but I just didn't want to I couldn't hang my head on one of the quarterbacks. But I think if one of them does kick off and have a solid season, like 3,500 passing yards, 25-ish touchdowns, and their team gets maybe 7-8 wins, they're probably in with a shout.
Hopefully,
Yep,
with
totally.
my Cardinals cap on, literally, I am sitting here wearing a Cardinals cap. That'll be that'll be Rosen. But we'll wait and see.
So I like to make it as bold and as wild as I possibly can. So my
6th
rookie
rounder
of-
incoming.
I did consider putting in the wide receiver that the Redskins picked last, Trey Quinn, but then I thought that's even too bold for me. So I'm going to go for Lamar Jackson from the Baltimore Ravens to win Rookie of the Year.
That is
bold.
extremely bold. Right.
Guys, you know me. I don't do things half-heartedly. So the reason that Lamar Jackson wins Rookie of the Year, I'll talk you through it right now. Joe Flacco is Joe Flacco. So after 5 or 6 games, there's going to be build-up from the fans, from the coaching staff to throw in Lamar Jackson. The Ravens are going to be on 2-4. They throw in Lamar Jackson and they finish on a winning season. Lamar Jackson takes the Ravens to the playoffs and then they get put out. But he gets Rookie of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
So,
no, absolutely. That would if that sequence of events happens, then I think you're right. I think there's not much arguing against it. It's almost what Deshaun Watson did last year, except with the injury. He wasn't expected to start. He came in after a couple of games, balled the shit out of October, and then busted his knee up. Had he continued, had he not busted his knee, hands down, he'd won it by the end of October.
Absolutely. And I do think, so as we sort of spoke about last time, the Ravens behind the scenes have been doing a lot of things to try and make Lamar Jackson work, and that was before they drafted him, with the coaching staff they brought in and all the things they done. So yeah, I think what you see is Joe Flacco loses his spot, Lamar Jackson comes in, goes on a good run, and even if he doesn't get to the playoffs, I think even if he does something similar to sort of what Garoppolo done last year, so if he wins 5 out of 6 games or whatever, I think he'd be in with a solid chance, because he would because of how poor I think the Ravens will be under Joe Flacco, because he's really regressing. So yeah, I think Jackson comes in, there's going to be loads of hype about him, and because there's no quarterback like him in this full league, he's more of a running back than he is a quarterback. So yeah, that's why I'm going for Lamar Jackson. Okay, so Steve, you sort of touched on it there. Deshaun Watson was injured last year after having what looked to be a potential Super Bowl season with the Texans. I think it's, that you could argue that they could have went all the way with him. So that takes us on to Comeback Player of the Year. Do any of you gentlemen want to start us off?
Well, you've already heard mine, so there's no surprise. I am going for Watson himself. I think again, it's kind of, there's almost a bit of a boring element to this because it's so pegged on quarterbacks that they can win just about every blinking award going just because of the position they play, but particularly worse if it's on comeback. And because he savaged his knee that bad in the season he was having, as long as he comes back, he gets on the field and he plays even 75% of what he was playing last year, they're going to be like, yeah, he wins it.
Is that a comeback?
Yeah. Comeback is genuinely so that there's two buckets it falls into. So there is more often than not, who wins it is someone who was quite seriously injured the year before. Occasionally though, what you'll get somebody who's maybe had a couple of really bad years. They've been generally healthy-ish, but they've been on the fringe, they've not played very well, things have been happening, and then they get their act together and absolutely go nuts for a season, and then they'll win it. But that's rare. It is more often than not someone who's been really badly injured the year before, and then the next year they played really well.
Yeah, I think it does tend to be injury based rather than performance based. Andrew, do you want to reveal your Comeback Player of the Year?
Yeah. So the guy I'm going with is currently a free agent. I'm going bold.
so they're not even. They might not even play.
They might not even play as it stands. So this would be a huge comeback. I am slating for some team, I don't know who, someone to lose one of the running backs early on. They go into free agency and they pick up Adrian Peterson. After his year last year, where he was poor at the Saints, he was traded to the Cardinals, he had a couple of okay games, and then he was injured and gone, and he's now a free agent. I think he'll be picked up, and then he will start balling. And he'll get his 100th touchdown, and then he'll get his 110th touchdown, and he will be the Comeback Player of the Year.
Andrew, can I give you some advice, mate? Can you stop speaking to those paintbrushes?
You wanted bold. You wanted bold.
That is bold. That is literally that's like
that is
italics and bold. Okay, I'm going to go for. I thought mine was bold, but now mine feels bland. I'm going to go for Andrew Luck from the Colts. There's still a lot about whether or not he'll be ready for the start of the season. But I think Andrew Luck is a prime contender. He's a super talent. He's not played in like forever. The Colts done a lot of work in the off season trying to improve their overall roster. They obviously picked up Quentin Nelson in the first round to help protect Luck and keep him up. I think if Luck plays the full season, regardless of the record, unless it's like 2-14 or 3-13 or whatever, I think he's got a serious chance. Just because of what he's been through. So I think if he gets above 5-11 or whatever, I think he's going to be a serious contender for it just because of how long he's been out and how bad the Colts have been. So that's my thinking behind it. Andrew Luck for Comeback Player of the Year. Nowhere near as bold as Adrian Peterson. Do you think they're going to do an advert
do you know? Sorry, I'm just jumping in here. Do you know who's got a right good chance of winning it as well, and I've just totally forgotten about it till now, is David Johnson, of course, because he busted his wrist on week 1.
Yeah, that's not bold though, is it?
I know it's not bold. True, yes, it's not bold. But I'm thinking putting sensible head on there for the same reason that Gav's just picked Andrew Luck. Actually, because David Johnson busted his wrist in week 1. He comes back and does his 1,000. He's going to be right in the mix as well.
There's actually a lot of people that it could go to. So, for example, there's JJ Watt, there's Aaron Rodgers, there's Odell Beckham.
I forgot. Yeah, he busted Eric Berry.
Even Allen Robinson at the Bears. I've got him down to have a huge season with the Bears because obviously he missed most of last year.
But there is quite a lot. That's probably going to be the most exciting race out of all these awards because most of them are pretty much slam dunks every year anyway. No huge surprise. This one could be a good one.
Even the other one as well that I thought about, but Dalvin Cook from the Vikings, he was looking really good. He was looking really good, and then obviously he got his bad injury. He's probably one of the Steve-O, you had him in fantasy, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I got lucky. I got it in a trade. I didn't draft him. I got him in a trade, and then he hit good, and I was like, oh man, this has worked out spectacularly well for me because I had him and Gurley, and I was thinking, right, well that's my running back slot, absolutely locked up for the season, and then he got injured, and I was like, no.
Yeah, so and obviously with Cousins as well, he's in a good spot. So yeah, that's a lot of good names there. That'll be a really interesting one to watch. Okay, so let's go from the comeback good news story to the bad news story of who will be the first coach to get chopped.
Do you want to take this one first, Gav?
Nope.
Oh,
you don't.
All right, well, I'll jump in then if you want. Okay, so I had 5 names down when I was thinking about this. So there's the obvious one, which I'm not going to mention in case either of you two have picked them. A couple other teams on the fringe. The one that I thought might actually end up getting the job though is Dirk Koetter at the Buccaneers.
Dirk Koetter.
This is going to become a staple of every week now. Every time we do this, someone's got to throw in some kind of faux Dutch accent at some point.
The AF cast where you can learn about American football and how to pronounce things in Dutch.
The American football cast.
It's terrible. But yes, no. I thought so they didn't have a particularly good season last year, obviously being featured in Hard Knocks, and then you thought they were going to do great because they've got all the right, squad wise they're pretty good. Then they had a bit of a flame out season. They've kind of, I almost feel like they've re-upped this off season. They got rid of Martin because they thought he was too old, and then their draft's been pretty decent. And I've just got this feeling that he's now on. He's not got a lot of wiggle room to play with at all. And if he has the same type of season again, and all of a sudden they're like, 2-6, 2-7, 2-8, boom, bye, gone, out.
Yeah, I think you're right. So I'm gonna give 2 for mine. As I know, Steve-O, you said you had 5, but I'm gonna go for 2. I'm gonna give you one that's logical and one that's bold. My logical one is Adam Gase. Because the Dolphins are a shambles. I can't see them having a good year at all, and I think he's lucky to still have that job right now. He just seems to have this weird mentality of not allowing people to challenge him for not doing a good job, which is strange. So yeah, I think he's in a really dodgy position, and I think the Bills got better in that division. And who's the other team in that again?
Jets.
The Jets. Yeah, the Jets obviously picked up Sam Darnold. So yeah, I think the Dolphins are going to be in a weird place. But my bold prediction, and this is quite bold, I think, for someone to be canned, is Ron Rivera from the Panthers.
My God, that is bold.
And I'll talk to you about my reasons behind this. And I think that the Panthers haven't really progressed like they should have. they seem to be not getting the best out of Cam Newton, and I do think he's going to be on a shelf life. I think because of the way that he plays, he's bound to get a bad injury soon, and I just think that, just that when you look at them, they just don't really seem to have a plan, and it just seems to be mostly relying on Cam to get them out of sticky situations. I like Luke Kuechly and stuff like that, but I think Ron Rivera, if he has a bad season, I think the Panthers just get rid of him and then rebuild their full team.
Do you think having the new owner might also then have something to do with that? Because he'll obviously want his guys in as well, eh? So
absolutely. That was the other thing that I was thinking about, was that whenever there's a new regime, they always say, yeah, we're going to give him time. But then 2 weeks later, he's chopped. So I think if Ron Rivera doesn't take them to the playoffs, I think he'll go. That's
what happened with the Pagulas up in Buffalo as well, was it not? Was that when Marone exercised the option in his contract to get out?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. So actually, do you know what? I can totally see that now. I didn't thought about it. As soon as you said it, I was like, God, that's crazy. But the more you talk through it, and actually, yeah, I get your thinking behind it, yeah.
I think that's like most people's conversations with me. It's like, this guy's absolutely crazy, and then I have to spend 5 minutes trying to justify what I was trying to say.
and that's just 9 to 9:05 when you walk in the building at work.
Yeah. All I've said is hello to someone.
So
okay, Andrew.
Yeah, so my pick on this, I don't know if it's bold or if it's obvious, but I am predicting that following their 0-16 season, the Cleveland Browns are going to be in week 11, having presumably had a bye week by then, and they're going to be not in 10. After everything that's happened over this summer, they seem to have had a decent free agency, they seem to have had an alright draft, but somehow they'll still balls it up. And at that point, the patience has got to go, and Hugh Jackson will be the first man out the door.
I think he's going to go this year regardless. But yeah, you're pretty...
Yeah, the only way I know it kind of seems obvious, but maybe the only thing that makes it a little bit on the bolder side, or maybe not by the same token, because they're going to be on Hard Knocks. It's going to be the Browns. They're going to be the public face of the NFL for the season. I don't know. I think there's a bit of a curse of Hard Knocks. Is my impression of it so far. Seems to be that no team that gets focused on that does really absolutely amazing that same season, but I've only gone back a few years thinking about that. I think the fact that if you get a team like that, they get put in the microscope so much probably adds to the pressure. And he was on my list. He was, when I was saying earlier, there was one obvious one out of the 5 that was on my list. It is Jackson at the Browns as well. Interestingly, I also had Gase at the Dolphins there, so at all 3. My other 2, just in case you wanted to know, I bunged down Vance Joseph at the Broncos. I think he didn't do particularly great last year, and Elway is very much a win now type person, and if he gets off to a rocky start, I think he's quite quick to pull the trigger. And my 5th one, which was maybe a bit harsh, but I can see it, is Gruden at the Redskins. Almost for the same reason, Snyder and Kirk Cousins were kind of tied at the hip sort of thing, and Gruden was, almost getting pushed out to the side, so you're going to play this guy and whatnot, and he's done all that, and Cousins has gone off, and now it's Gruden's show to run. He's got his guy in. If he doesn't do particularly well, and I think the other thing that goes against him is the fact that division is definitely one of the harder ones now. If he gets off to a bad start, I think, boom, he could be gone as well.
I did think about Jay Gruden, but then I didn't want to make it too obvious on air that I absolutely hate him.
You don't want to shit all over your team as well, so it's all good.
Yeah. I think the Redskins are either going to have, and this is obviously a bit of a cliche, but we're either going to be really good or really bad. I think Alex Smith will be fine. A lot of the moves we've made have been pretty decent. Our draft was pretty good, but our division is really hard. I think everyone's improved. Even the Eagles have improved, and Christ knows how you do that after winning the Super Bowl. the Cowboys will come back better. The Giants have had a change in head coach and whatnot, so that always brings new challenges. So yeah, I think we'll be in a really we'll either beat these teams or we lose to them, and we'll either have a really good season or a really bad season. And if we finish in the top 5 draft picks, Gruden's 100% gone. Okay, so we will move on to. So we've got MVP and Super Bowl left. Let's do them as 2 together. So Andrew, who do you go for as your Super Bowl winner and MVP of?
Well, I said there was more to come when I chose Saquon Barkley as Rookie of the Year. So,
oh my God,
that more to come is that I am
the Browns.
is that I am putting Saquon Barkley as my MVP, and he's going to take the Giants not quite all the way. I've got that they're going to lose in the Super Bowl to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Wow. That's bold.
I was just like in stunned amazement as this whole spiel was coming out.
So,
amazing.
The Jags, I don't think, is that bold. So they were a team that did well last year. They got to the championship game.
AFC Championship game.
Yeah, so I think that this time round they'll win the championship game and they'll win the Super Bowl. The bold part of this is going to be the Giants that they're going to beat. But Barkley's going to be there. He's going to take the pressure off Eli. So he's going to be able to resort on his run game. And that'll free him up. He won't feel the pressure as much and he'll start balling. He will have a fit and healthy OBJ to throw downfield to. I think when all is said and done, he'll probably have Des Bryant on the other side as well. And I just think that whole combination is going to take them nearly all the way.
Wow. That is something.
Follow that, guys.
I can't beat it. No, I can't. It's certainly in bold. Mine's is particularly daft. I did, however, interestingly, if we were going like for real weird bold predictions, all encompassing without having sort of categories on them, one of them that I did think was that Des Bryant would have a career year in terms of touchdowns. I did think that I might have thrown that in there, but it depends on who he signs. I was just thinking for a general bold prediction. I didn't know who he was going to sign for or whatnot. Does he go up to Green Bay and because he's got Rodgers just flings all these amazing balls for him to get up and catch
I like
or
that.
whatnot.
Put a pin in that just now, Steve. Sorry to interrupt you. What I'm thinking is we do our MVP Super Bowl and then we'll just do a random any other bold predictions like that, and it can just be freewheeling because I love that sort of shit. So, okay, Steve.
Right, back to the 2 on point then. So, MVP, let's go with that one. It's not particularly exciting, but I reckon it could be Aaron Rodgers back on the slate, being king of the hill. If he goes injury free, he now has Jimmy Graham, obviously, to throw the ball to as well. So that offense, you hope, is going to be ticking a bit more. And the thing I think that will help him a bit more is, interestingly, what they've done in the draft, which is by drafting up on defense and sorting out all the defensive problems they've had for the last few years. That'll hopefully get them off the field a lot quicker, which means Rodgers can just get down to business and start taking the piss out of everyone like he does best. So I'll chuck that one in. Now the Super Bowl, I was sitting there, I thought it was just the teams to be in it, not who was going to win it. So I've just on the hop decided out the 2 of them. So the 2 teams I had in the Super Bowl was going to be Rams versus the Steelers. So based on that, because I'm not a massive Steelers fan anyway, I'm going to say the Rams are going to win it. And it'll be the Greatest Show on Turf Part 2.
Wow.
You booing at? You booing at? Oh yeah, because you're a Cards fan, sorry. It all makes so much sense now.
I watched them shut us out at Twickenham. I couldn't handle them winning a Super Bowl as well to follow it up.
Oh, right enough. God, yeah. No, McVay has done wonders since he's gone there. I know we've talked about him a few times on this show. I love what they've done this off-season. The people they've picked up on the deals that they've got them for is just like... It's almost taken the mick. It's how do you take a good team and make them better? I mean, the Eagles kind of tried to do a bit of the blueprint. I think in terms of free agency and whatnot, the Rams, they're still my team to win, in terms of the pieces they've added by comparison. I just love what they do, so I just hope that McVay can keep it all clicking along like it can. Sue and Donald just decide to go on an absolute tear for the season, and they're sitting there holding the Lombardi at the end.
I like it. I was going to say the Rams, but now I feel like I'm going to pick someone else just because I don't want us all to have the same pick. One side note that just popped into my head when you said about Rodgers just doing his thing, and this is going back to All or Nothing, but you know that episode in All or Nothing where the Packers are playing the Cowboys?
And they've got like 12 seconds left or something here, and he's just sitting there like the absolute man going, I've got this, don't worry about it, no sweat.
There is no player that does that as good as him. There is no, and I know you can have like genuine arguments about Brady over Rodgers and all the rest of it, but there is no player that can do that the way he does it. He's just so poised, he's just so calm. It's like, there's 7 seconds left, mate, and you've got to get 9 million yards.
And he just sits and he's like, twizzles his moustache a little bit as if to say, easy.
Scrambles about side to side, pirouettes, and then throws a huge bomb downfield that some random tight end catches. Like, it's just his thing.
Could be the same as any other Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so my predictions, and I did have the Rams, so I'm now freewheeling completely. So my winner of the Super Bowl to come is going to be Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints. And the reason behind that is they've got 2 running backs that just people cannot stop. And I think actually Mark Ingram's suspension works out as a positive. Because one, it lets them see how Kamara can handle a load as a true RB1. Mm-hmm. But secondly, once he comes back from that suspension, they've got a fit and healthy Mark Ingram who is ready to come in against teams who are a bit battered and bruised 5 games in. So he comes out and does his thing. I think they were really good last year, and they've, their defense was sneaky good. They added to that in the first round, albeit it was a bit of a reach, but they've improved that part as well. So I'm going for the Saints to win the Super Bowl with Alvin Kamara MVP.
Alvin Kamara MVP and not Drew Brees. Wow.
Alvin Kamara to be MVP, and I think, and again, I was watching videos of him on the way to work the other day because that's how weird my life is, and he's so good. He's just as good catching the ball as he is running out the backfield. He's I can't believe he went in the 3rd round. He's so good. That's what I'm going for. Yeah,
the thing I find absolutely mad about him is just guys can't get him to the ground. It's insane how long he manages to stay on his feet.
He's like Marshawn Lynch, but able to catch the ball really well. He just keeps breaking the tackles. I think that's what the Saints will be. Sneaky good, and Drew Brees is Drew Brees. His yards have gone down, like his air yards, but obviously that's going to happen when you have Ingram and Kamara. Why would you keep throwing the ball when you don't need to keep throwing the ball? That's my thinking for this year. So obviously all our predictions, if we round them up. So Andrew, you've got the New York Giants to win the Super Bowl.
No, the Jacksonville Jaguars to win the Super Bowl.
Oh, sorry, yeah, that's right.
With
Jags to win the Super Bowl. Sorry.
Saquon Barkley as both MVP and Rookie of the Year. Hugh Jackson to get the sack first, and AP as the Comeback Player of the Year.
And kids, that's why you don't talk to paintbrushes.
It's absolutely the episode title, isn't it?
I didn't even think of that. Don't talk to paintbrushes.
All or something, and don't talk to paintbrushes.
Brilliant. Okay, Steve, let's do your roundup.
So first coach fired Dirk Cotter, Aaron Rodgers
Sorry, who?
Dirk Cotter.
Dirk.
That sounded a
Dirk
bit Asian
Cotter.
rather than Dutch.
Dirk Muhammad Jihad. America, fuck yeah. Anyway, sorry. So Aaron Rodgers for MVP. Super Bowl being Rams versus Steelers with the Rams win. Rookie of the Year, Saquon Barkley. Comeback Player of the Year is Deshaun Watson.
Love it. So I said for the Saints and Kamara for MVP and Super Bowl. Adam Gase to be the first head coach to be fired. I can't remember who I said for Rookie of the Year.
Lamar Jackson.
Lamar, of course it was. Wow. That's what, my phone's literally just cut out and all my notes have gone, so I can't actually remember what I said 5 minutes ago. Maybe I should start talking to Paintbrushes. Has anyone got any other bold predictions or anything else you want to throw out? Steve, what were you saying about Dez?
Yeah, I just had this really sneaky feeling that I was kind of thinking about it through All or Nothing as well, because it's very much one of these stories that happens in the NFL. You get this player that was brilliant, and they've kind of had a few off seasons, and then they get cut, and then the sort of the 180-degree sign on another team, have the second whirl of the career type thing. So I just thought in my head that it wouldn't, it would just be really interesting to see, considering he's had nobody, really given him much in the way of offers or anything, that eventually Bryant signs on, and not only does he sign on, he absolutely balls out and gets like some crazy, like 15 touchdowns in a season or something daft like that. So.
Do you think he's not signed? Is this one of these weird NFL rules where if he signs after a certain date, he basically doesn't count towards your cap or something like that? One of these sort of rules.
I don't know. Yeah, so there's obviously there's the first day the season starts, i.e. September whatever, week 1, where if you sign them, you don't have to even guarantee them a salary. It's just week to week, and you can cut them whenever. No, I think it's I want to say it's the bad combination of Dez wants a multi-year at a fairly decent amount of money. Teams are only really willing to give him a 1-year flyer, and it's just that cross in the middle. Where do you go? Kind of scenario, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I'm going to do one quick bold prediction, and that is going to be that Alex Smith is going to have more touchdowns than Carson Wentz.
I don't know about that, but I suppose we did say it was bold, eh?
Do you think he'll have more or less than Kirk Cousins?
I think he'll have, if we go for passing touchdowns, if Jordan Reed stays healthy, he'll have more. But Jordan Reed won't stay healthy, so less.
Here's a man who knows his team. I love it. On paper, we're great, but we can't stay healthy, so basically we're fucked.
I genuinely think if Jordan Reed could play a full season, he would be in the same category as like Gronk and all the rest of them, but he's just injured all the time.
Yeah, he's been Gronk, Travis Kelce type. That mental hybrid tight end. Yeah, but you're right, he's just not. It's the concussion problems were what started it off, but I think he's not been quite so bad with that recently. It's been other injuries, isn't it?
He's got a really bad toe injury, and that's the actual truth.
Is it a good old turf toe that they keep going?
Yeah,
he's got bloody turf toe.
He's got that. So he went from having his brains knocked out to having a sore toe. Which is pretty silly. Okay,
I've got
Andrew?
one more prediction. So, and in the fashion of the rest of them, I'm just going balls out bold. Why not?
Balls out bold.
I think in 2018, for the first time in however many years, the New England Patriots will not make the playoffs.
Oh my god. Donnie Taylor's just left the chat.
We'd done so well to keep him engaged for the whole episode until
54
now.
minutes in, and we lose David Taylor.
No, I think age will catch up with Tom Brady. I think he'll get injured early in the season, and there's no one ready-made behind him, and they're going to struggle. Yeah, he's not going to take a team to the playoffs, is he?
Probably wouldn't even take a team through training.
Exactly. Exactly. So, that's my bold prediction to finish up, is that the New England Patriots will not make the playoffs.
Yeah, I cannot top that.
I would love if that happened. Can I just end on one final bold prediction? One final one.
You better not say you're going to win the fantasy again.
There will be a 3-time fantasy champion.
Yeah, you suck. I knew you were going to go with
it. You guys can do nothing to stop it.
I just hope that we're... On you go, Gav, on you go.
I was just going to say, I know that's obviously me being a bit of a dick, but I said it last year, it came true, and I'd just like to, put that out there again, that I will be 3-time reigning, defending Game of Balls champion of the world. Suckers.
I just hope that in a year's time we're still here and looking back on these predictions. I'm not sure that big time Gav will be. He might have just pissed off and left us by that
point. I'll be sending my PA to do my podcast for me.
Sorry, Gav couldn't make it this week.
He said Tyrod Taylor.
It says you'd know what that means. Yes, we do.
Okay, guys, let's wrap this up. It's been a blast. Andrew, where can people find you?
So you can find all of us on Twitter at the AFcast. Please let us know what you think. If you want to speak to me personally, although I'm not sure why you would after what you've just heard over the last hour.
He speaks to Paintbrushes.
But you can get me at AndrewDHD on Twitter as well. Come speak to us. Look forward to hearing from you. Cheers.
Was that Andrew DPD? Depardieu?
DHD.
What does that stand for?
It stands for Die Hard Doonhamer, as a Queen of the South fan.
Okay. A Doonhamer? A Doon?
That sounded American, not Dutch.
That was meant to be American, that one.
Oh, sorry. Shut up, Houserath.
Steve-O, where can you get you?
So main port of call is obviously the AFcast on Twitter. You can get me on my own one at Wise Pranker, or you can hit me up on Facebook or Instagram under Stephen Houserath.
Nice. You'll find me on Twitter, ruling it, because I'm the king of the internet. But no, you'll actually find me. I
was trying to hold it in there. Look at me.
The king of the internet. Step aside, Kanye.
Zuckerberg ain't got nothing on me.
I'm actually going to give my other project, so I'm going to say if you can find me at Pure Fitbaw.
Your other project doesn't need any more publicity.
You can find me there, or alternatively, I'm actually at Gav John Mill 1. I would like to thank the army of Freshmen for the song that they provide for us at the start of our podcast, which was really nice to listen to, and the people at that other place that I can't remember because my phone's dead.
That would be the Fair City Podcast Network. Thank you, guys.
As you can see, we are so professional. No, it's been a blast. I've had a good time, guys. I hope you've had a good time listening too, and thank you for your time. See you later.